Hey Spurs fans, welcome back to another update on our San Antonio Spurs. Before we jump into today's breaking news, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And here's something special for you. Everyone who subscribes and leaves a comment with their name and the city they're watching from will automatically be entered into our giveaway to win an official San Antonio Spurs jersey. So don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and comment your name and city below. Stay tuned, because the next Spurs fan wearing the jersey could be you. Victor Wembanyama has been sidelined since November 14th due to a strain in his left calf, and the prolonged absence has already ceased to be a simple injury update to become a deadline he must resolve quickly. The possibility of a return for the NBA Cup quarterfinal match against the Los Angeles Lakers was considered, but the San Antonio Spurs chose to rule the athlete out of the matchup, a decision that increases the pressure on his recovery timeline and on his individual ambitions for the end of the season. The concern revolves around a straightforward calculation. League players lose eligibility for awards if they exceed the limit of absences, and that threshold is 17 missed games. With the announced absence for this week's game, Wembanyama now tallies 12 games without stepping on the court, a number that dangerously brings him closer to the red line that could cost him recognition when voting takes place at the end of the campaign. More than cold statistics, this scenario has practical consequences. Rehabilitation for a calf injury requires balance between rest, intensive physiotherapy, and a gradual progression of workload. Rushing this process increases the risk of setbacks. On the other hand, delaying the return reduces the player's exposure window to voters and, consequently, his chances of maintaining prominence in end-of-year rankings. The equation is simple and unforgiving. Returning too early can harm him physically. Waiting too long can affect his standing politically within the league. While the medical plan defines daily steps, the Spurs collective has delivered responses on the court that partially mitigate the effects of missing their greatest talent. The team has won 8 of 11 games played without him, including 2 NBA Cup matchups that allowed their qualification for the quarterfinals. This performance creates a dual narrative. On one hand, it reduces the fan base's immediate anxiety because the results are coming. On the other, it places on the player the demand for a return that justifies his immediate reinstatement to the starting lineup as soon as he is ready, since the team has proven it can win without relying exclusively on his presence. If victory over Los Angeles is confirmed, San Antonio will advance to Saturday's semifinals, where they will face the winner between Phoenix and Oklahoma City. The NBA Cup final is scheduled for the following Tuesday. This schedule compresses decisions. The available time for reintegration is short, and any readaptation plan must be executed with clockwork precision. The period between a potential return and decisive games is too small for slow testing. In season averages, Wembanyama continues to post a striking influence. He leads the Spurs in scoring with 26.2 points per game. He also dominates the rebounding charts with 12.9 and maintains an impressive defensive presence by leading blocking statistics with 3.6 per game. These totals not only sustain his reputation, but create an explicit contrast between what the team loses in his absence and how much the group has adapted its play style. From a technical standpoint, the calf is a region that absorbs major load in explosive movements, jumps, and landings, all central actions in the repertoire of a player with Wembanyama's length and reach. Ideal rehabilitation follows stages: reduction of swelling and pain, regaining mobility, gradual strength work, and finally reintroduction of plyometrics and sport-specific contact drills. Each stage requires careful observation and objective indicators to advance, because overextending too early may mean several more weeks without playing. There is also a psychological component. The athlete experiences tension between his competitive ambition to return and decide games and the need to preserve his body in the long term. This tension weighs not only on him, but also on the coaching staff, the front office, and the fans who follow each update with expectation and sometimes impatience. Managing this balance will determine whether his return is sustainable or just a temporary pause leading to new complications. Analysts point out that, in terms of awards, time on court is not the only criterion. qualitative impact, decisive moments, and season-long narrative also matter. But when missed games approach the regulatory limit, the margin for error shrinks dramatically. Losing games at a decisive moment can suffocate award campaigns that once appeared unquestionable. From a Spurs perspective, the response has been pragmatic. Reinforce preventive protocols, adjust training schedules for players replacing Wembanyama, and above all, maintain the tactical coherence that enabled recent victories. The team has shown defensive resilience and offensive alternatives that reduce complete dependency on the young star, although no one denies that the team's maximum potential is reached with him on the court. Looking ahead demands two simultaneous readings. If Wembanyama manages to complete rehabilitation at the right pace and return before the absences become a problem, the impact will be immediate on both team performance and his individual projection. If, however, recovery drags on, the chances for individual recognition through awards may be severely compromised, and the focus will need to shift to medium-term planning, prioritizing health and career longevity. In the competitive context of the NBA, where small margins dictate outcomes, every missed game represents a slice of exposure and one less competitive opportunity. This applies to titles and personal awards alike. The medical decision regarding when to reintegrate him will therefore be one of the most delicate of the season, requiring clinical insight, sporting sensitivity, and strategic vision. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support keeps our Spurs coverage strong and brings you the latest updates straight from San Antonio. And jump into the comments. Tell us what you think about today's news. In an afternoon that will be remembered as one of the most unpredictable and conversation-igniting moments of the San Antonio Spurs' recent history, the franchise detonated a shockwave across the NBA landscape by announcing the surprise signing of rising prospect Dylan Harper, while simultaneously releasing a well-known veteran in a swift, decisive move that left analysts scrambling, fans stunned, and insiders questioning what might be unfolding behind the closed doors of the organization's evolving long-term strategy, a moment so abrupt and dramatic that the video announcement itself instantly sent social media into a state of frenzy as viewers rushed to understand why this decision was executed with such urgency and what it truly signifies for a franchise hungry to reclaim relevance and competitiveness in a rapidly changing Western Conference. The unfolding narrative surrounding the Spurs' sudden commitment to Dylan Harper, a young talent whose upside has been feverishly debated over the past months, immediately raised eyebrows because the front office's silence in recent weeks had led many to believe that the team was entering a period of calculated patience rather than bold mid-season adjustments, which made this signing feel less like routine roster maintenance and more like a deliberate signal that something bigger and more transformative is in motion behind the scenes as general manager Brian Wright and head coach Greg Popovich recalibrate their roster around youth, versatility, and long-term development. From the moment the news dropped, the organization's fans were electrified, not only because Harper represents a fresh injection of energy and potential, but also because the abrupt dismissal of the veteran, whose presence in the locker room had long been considered a stabilizing force, shattered the perception that the Spurs were unwilling to make uncomfortable decisions, reinforcing the idea that rebuilding is not merely about accumulating young players, but about decisively choosing which pieces align with the future vision and which no longer fit the evolving blueprint of a team striving to reinvent itself around its emerging core. Dylan Harper's arrival immediately became the focal point of heated conversation, especially considering his reputation for explosive athleticism, creative scoring, and an intuitive feel for the game that scouts have praised since his high school years. And although expectations must inevitably be tempered given the brutal learning curve of the NBA, the franchise's willingness to act aggressively suggests a profound belief that the young guard offers something beyond raw potential, a spark capable of accelerating the long-term rebuild and amplifying the strengths and aspirations of a team eager to escape the mediocrity that has defined recent seasons. What made the announcement even more gripping was the theatrical manner in which the Spurs released the information, with an unexpected mid-afternoon post that instantly captured global attention as major media outlets rushed to interpret the decision, fueling speculation that the franchise purposely orchestrated the timing to create maximum intrigue, signaling not only confidence in the move, but also a desire to reclaim relevance in a league where narrative control has become as critical as roster construction, especially for rebuilding teams seeking to reestablish their identity. As conversations intensified, many analysts noted that Harper's arrival aligns with the organization's broader commitment to crafting a roster defined by multidimensional young players who can grow alongside the team's emerging stars. And although he is still relatively untested at the professional level, his play style, characterized by fearless drives, smooth shot creation, and an infectious intensity, mirrors the type of modern backcourt talent the Spurs have desperately needed to complement their evolving system and inject greater dynamism into their offensive schemes. Still, the decision to release the veteran so swiftly has raised questions about whether internal issues influence the outcome, as insiders reported subtle tension in recent weeks regarding role distribution, playing time, and broader team direction. And while the Spurs have maintained their signature silence on sensitive matters, the abruptness of the move has only intensified rumors that the change was not merely tactical, but also connected to deeper philosophical differences about leadership, accountability, and the emotional demands of rebuilding a franchise with such a storied past. For a franchise known for its measured, methodical approach, this sudden back-to-back decision felt like an unmistakable pivot, a message that the organization is no longer content with incremental adjustments and is instead embracing an era where boldness, risk, and unpredictability are welcome tools in crafting a new identity, especially one capable of reigniting fan excitement and reestablishing the Spurs as a team once again worth watching, analyzing, and respecting on a national scale. Among fans, reactions varied from excitement to disbelief, but the overwhelming sentiment was that the franchise had finally taken a definitive step toward reshaping the roster with a greater sense of ambition. And while some expressed sadness at the veteran's departure due to his long-standing contributions, others championed the decision as a necessary disruption, one that reflects a new organizational mindset focused on growth, flexibility, and a relentless pursuit of future success. As the news continued to circulate, speculation regarding Harper's immediate role within the rotation began to dominate online discourse, with some predicting that Popovich might gradually ease him into the lineup, while others argued that his skill set makes him an instant candidate for meaningful minutes, especially considering the team's ongoing search for reliable scoring options and backcourt depth capable of alleviating pressure on the team's developing offensive structure. What remains clear is that Harper brings a unique combination of hunger, athleticism, and creative playmaking that has been sorely missing from the Spurs' ranks, qualities that could significantly elevate the team's tempo and offensive unpredictability, allowing them to diversify their attack and become less reliant on static sets that opponents have too easily contained in recent seasons, thus creating opportunities to test new systems, experiment with lineups, and redefine the franchise's basketball identity. The decision also underscores the front office's confidence in their scouting and development system, as the Spurs have historically excelled at identifying under-the-radar talent and nurturing it into meaningful contributors, a skill that has allowed them to remain competitive across decades, and one that appears even more vital now as they attempt to rebuild in one of the most competitive eras the NBA has ever seen, where missteps in talent evaluation can set a franchise back years. As analysts dissect the timing of the signing, many believe that the front office viewed this moment as a prime opportunity to inject fresh energy into a season that had begun to feel stagnant. And while timing alone does not shape a player's destiny, the psychological impact of introducing a promising new face at a moment of uncertainty could galvanize the locker room, pushing players to elevate their focus, intensity, and willingness to adapt to evolving roles within the team structure. Harper himself reacted to the signing with a mixture of excitement and humility, expressing gratitude for the opportunity and emphasizing his desire to contribute in any way possible, sentiments that resonated deeply with fans who long for players willing to embrace the challenge of rebuilding with dedication, passion, and a willingness to grow, both individually and collectively, within a team environment anchored in discipline and long-term vision. Meanwhile, questions surrounding the departing veteran's next destination continue to swirl, as several teams in need of experience and leadership have reportedly expressed interest, transforming his release into yet another layer of intrigue within this already complex narrative. And while his departure marks the end of a meaningful chapter in San Antonio, it also opens the door for him to continue impacting the league in a different environment. In contrast, Harper's arrival signals the opening of a new chapter for the Spurs, one defined not by nostalgia, but by the pursuit of future excellence, a journey that requires embracing uncertainty, trusting young talent, and committing to a process that, while unpredictable, carries the potential to transform the franchise in ways that extend far beyond a single season or roster adjustment. The Spurs' decision to move swiftly and decisively also sends a message to the rest of the league that the organization is no longer content to linger passively in rebuild mode, but is instead actively shaping its future with intentionality, courage, and a willingness to challenge conventional expectations, traits that may ultimately define the next era of Spurs basketball. As observers continue to break down Harper's strengths, many highlight his exceptional court vision, fluid handle, and willingness to create for teammates, qualities that, if developed properly, could make him an ideal fit within the Spurs system, which has always valued unselfishness, ball movement, and intelligent decision-making as foundational principles of team success. Off the court, his charismatic personality and eagerness to learn have already made a strong impression on the organization, with reports suggesting that he has been proactive in connecting with teammates, studying film, and immersing himself in the culture of responsibility and mutual respect that has long defined the Spurs' identity, demonstrating a maturity that belies his youth. As the franchise prepares for the next stretch of the season, the coaching staff faces the task of integrating Harper into a system that relies heavily on structure, spacing, and analytical precision, a challenge that Popovich and his assistants have embraced enthusiastically given their reputation for maximizing the potential of young players through discipline, mentorship, and carefully curated development plans. The broader fan base, still processing the shock of the afternoon announcement, has begun rallying around the idea that Harper may represent more than just a roster addition, but rather a spark capable of redefining expectations, fueling optimism, and inspiring a level of engagement that the franchise has long been seeking to rekindle in its quest to return to competitive prominence. As questions continue to surface regarding the deeper motivations behind the decision to cut the veteran, insiders hint that the move was not solely performance-based, but stemmed from a combination of strategic planning, role conflict, and the desire to prioritize developmental minutes for younger players expected to shape the franchise's future core, reflecting a shift toward a more intentional, forward-thinking philosophy. Meanwhile, Harper's adjustment period, inevitable for any young player entering the league, will likely be marked by moments of brilliance, stretches of inconsistency, and the kind of learning experiences that ultimately shape resilience, confidence, and basketball IQ, all of which are essential for players seeking to thrive in the intensely competitive environment of the NBA. What remains undeniable is that the Spurs' bold decision has injected a newfound sense of urgency, excitement, and unpredictability into the season, transforming an otherwise ordinary afternoon into a turning point that may ultimately define the narrative of this year's campaign, capturing the attention of fans, reporters, and analysts alike. As conversations unfold across television panels, podcasts, and online forums, the move is being framed as a strategic gamble, one that could either catalyze the franchise's long-awaited rise or become a cautionary tale about the complexities of rebuilding, though early reactions suggest that the organization is more energized, unified, and creatively aligned than it has been in years. Harper's presence also introduces new strategic dimensions to the team's rotation, allowing Popovich to experiment with different backcourt combinations, pacing strategies, and lineup adjustments that could unlock new efficiencies and provide valuable insights into how the team's young core can develop synergy and chemistry heading into future seasons. In the short term, expectations for Harper may vary, but the long-term vision remains clear. He is being positioned not merely as a hopeful experiment, but as a carefully chosen investment, a player whose natural instincts and capacity for growth align seamlessly with the franchise's pursuit of a dynamic, modern identity grounded in speed, creativity, and unwavering competitiveness. That's it for today's update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of every exclusive San Antonio Spurs news drop, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And don't forget, your opinion matters to Spurs Nation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.